Good morning, students. Today we are going to continue the remaining portion of amino acid chapter. In the last class, we have learned about different reactions due to amino group, carboxylic group, and the side chain. Today we are starting with the structure of proteins. Proteins have different level of organization, which include primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. First is primary structure. Primary structure means what? It is the number and sequence of amino acid in the protein. We consider the primary structure of a protein is somewhat like this. Amino acids sequentially arranged. On looking that, we can understand what is the sequence of amino acid in a protein. And that sequence is determined by the gene responsible for forming this protein. Based on the nucleotide sequence of the gene, this amino acid is sequentially arranged to give this protein. And this primary structure is maintained by strong covalent bonds, and it is maintained by strong covalent bonds. Next slide. Then we are going to understand more about the peptide bond that is holding amino acid together in a polypeptide chain. Okay. So in this picture, this is the peptide bond. I will show that this is the peptide bond, CONH, and that carbon nitrogen bond is trans in nature. Usually it is trans in nature, means you look its arrangement to the opposite side, and this is a cis arrangement. This is here in the both oxygen and hydrogen are arranged to the same side. So peptide bonds usually have a trans arrangement, and as it has a partial double bond character, it cannot rotate. It cannot rotate about its angle, its axis. Sorry, its axis. It cannot rotate. It is not free. It is not able to rotate freely, as it is having a partial double bond character. And the bond distance, what is it? It is 1.32 Armstrong. And that distance is somewhat midway between single bonds and double bonds bond distance. And the side chain, here side chains are present. The side chains are free to rotate on either side of the peptide bond. An angle of rotation of that freely rotatable side chains is called the Ramachandran angle. That angle of rotation of the side chain is called the Ramachandran angles. Then next, in a polypeptide, there will be in the primary structure of a protein. We can see an amino terminal end and a carboxy terminal end. Amino terminal end. What is amino terminal end? Look in this picture. It's a part of a polypeptide chain or a primary structure. Here, the free alpha amino group. This is the alpha amino group at the end of the polypeptide chain. At the end of this polypeptide chain, we can see a free amino group attached to the alpha carbon. That amino group is called amino terminal end. And that amino acid contributing that alpha amino group is the first amino acid in a polypeptide chain. And while we are writing the protein sequence, we are writing the N terminal in the left hand side. And the other end of the polypeptide chain is a carboxyl terminal end or C terminal end. it is with a free alpha carboxy group, and that carboxyl end or C terminal end is contributed by the last amino acid. Then all the other amino acids in between the N terminal and C terminal, that is involved in peptide bond formation, because that means it is connected between each other, or they are bonded each other. Then only a continuous chain of polypeptide is possible to form. Next slide. Then in a polypeptide chain, if we write the sequence of amino acid in a polypeptide chain, in what way we designate each amino acid? Let's consider the case of glycine. Glycine, usually glycine, as we write the sequence in a polypeptide chain, that glycine become glycyl. That means that INE is transferred to YL. That way it is shortened. That's the change. While we are denoting the amino acid sequence in a polypeptide chain. And branched and circular polypeptide chain means what? Usually polypeptide chains are linear itself. Some cases branching points also found, and that branching is produced by interchain, means between interchain disulfide bridges, where these disulfide bridges are forming between different polypeptide chains, different polypeptide. It is one polypeptide chain and another polypeptide chain, and that disulfide bridge can form between different polypeptide chain, or can form in same polypeptide chain in its different region. In very rare situation, gamma COH group, gamma carboxylic group also involved in peptide bond formation. Usually alpha is involved, and very rarely gamma carboxyl group also involved in peptide bond formation. And example for such a peptide bond, it is seen in glutamic acid, and that type of peptide bond is called a pseudopeptide. It is called a pseudopeptide. And very rare situation, we can also see circular proteins. Usually primary structure of all proteins is linear. Sometimes branched is rarely seen, and very rarely we can see some circular form. Then we are going to study the primary structure of insulin as a case study. That primary structure of insulin is described by Sanger in 1955, and for that he was awarded Nobel Prize in 1958. Structure of insulin. It has two polypeptide chains. Two polypeptide chains are there. One is called A and the other is B. A has 21 amino acid and B has 30 amino acids. And these two polypeptide chains are held together by two interchain disulfide bonds. And if we are taking the case of A chain, the 7th cysteine and the B chain, the 7th cysteine, they are bonding each other through a disulfide bond. So one disulfide bond is there. Similar to that, one more is also present there. A chains 20th cysteine and B chains 19th cysteine will form a disulfide bridge and connected each other. And another interchain disulfide bond also present between 6th and 11th cysteine residues of A chain. A chain itself, same polypeptide chain. Another disulfide bond also present between 6th and 11th cysteine residues of A chain. And coming to its a sequence, In the case of A chain, only 8th, 9th and 10th positioned amino acid we can change to certain extent. All the other amino acids should be conserved. If it is changed, it will seriously affect the function of that protein. And in the case of B polypeptide chain, we can only make some minor changes in the C terminal amino acids. Okay. If we take the porcine and human insulin, porcine means pig insulin and human insulin, they are structurally very similar. Only difference is that in the B chain, the terminal threonine amino acid is changed to alanine. That's the only change when compared with the porcine and human insulin. Next slide. Pro-insulin means we know that pancreas beta cell is secreting the insulin. While the pancreas secrete the insulin, it is first in the form of pro-insulin. That means it is that time is composed of only a single chain. It is composed of 86 amino acid. Pro-insulin, and then its central portion is cut out and then released as A and B polypeptide chain. The central portion of proinsulin is removed before release. In that way, the final insulin is forming. Then that's about the insulin primary structure. Then significance of the primary structure. Higher level means secondary, tertiary. That level of organization happens depend on the primary structure. Okay, any change even in a single amino acid of primary structure, it will cause a very serious, profound effect in its function. Example, sickle cell anemia. A single amino acid change in that hemoglobin lead to the disease sickle cell anemia. Glutamine is replaced by valine. Right. Then secondary structure. Primary structure is over. Then secondary structure. What is secondary structure? It denotes the configurational relationship between residues which are about 3 to 4 amino acid apart in the linear sequence. Means it is a configurational, how its orientation. If we are thinking about a linear polypeptide sequence, the amino acid, here an amino acid, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. This amino acid and this amino acid. And because of their configurational peculiarity, they can come and form, sometimes come and they can fold, somehow they can fold 1, 2, 3, 4. Because of their configuration, they can fold and can have a bond between them to constitute the secondary structure. Clear? It is the folded, first hand folded conformation of protein, and that folding and bond, that holding that fold is occurring or forming because of the optimal configuration, or we can tell in another way that it denotes the configurational relationship between the residues which are about 3 to 4 amino acids apart in the linear sequence. So the secondary and tertiary levels of proteins are held by, that means this relationship, that folding and is held by which all type of forces. Electrostatic bonds are there, hydrophobic bonds are there, then van der Waals force. We have learned about all these bonds in former classes, where I am just mentioning what these bonds once again. First is hydrogen bond. Hydrogen bond is a weak electrostatic attraction. Attraction between attraction between one electronegative atom and a hydrogen atom, which is covalently linked to another electronegative atom. So, I think it's clear to you because hydrogen bond is a attraction, is type of electrostatic attraction between one electronegative atom. It can be oxygen or nitrogen and a hydrogen, and that hydrogen is covalently linked to another such electronegative atom. That also can be oxygen or nitrogen. Then which all can act as hydrogen donors in hydrogen bond? NH group seen in imidazole, indole and peptide. OH group seen in serine and threonine. NH2 group seen in arginine and lysine. All these can stand as hydrogen donors. Then which are the hydrogen accepting groups? CO groups in aspartic or glutamic, C double bond or groups in peptide, and sulfur disulfide bond in disulfides. All these can act as hydrogen accepting groups. Then electrostatic bonds means what? These are the bonds between oppositely charged ions. Then between positively charged ion and a negatively charged ion. So, which are the positive charge ion donors? Epsilon amino group of lysine, guanidinium group of arginine, imidazolium group of histidine. These all are the donors. They all stand as positive ions to form electrostatic bond. Then negative charge donors are who? Then beta and gamma carboxyl group in aspartic and glutamic acid. They stand as negatively charged carrying ions for forming the electrostatic bonds. Next, hydrophobic. Hydrophobic forces means it is a type of interaction formed between non-polar hydrophobic side chains. Between the side chain, this forming non-polar hydrophobic side chain. There that bond is forming. It is forming by eliminating water molecules. And this bonds serves to hold lipophilic side chains together. Lipophilic means lipid soluble side chains together. It hold that type of side chain together, hydrophobic forces. Then van der Waals force. Van der Waals force, we know that they are weak force. Even if they are weak, so many van der Waals force exist in the secondary structure. Together they can give stability to protein. Then in secondary structure, two types of organization is there, alpha and beta. Alpha helix, it is described by Pauling and Corey in 1951. And for that, they also got Nobel Prize in 1954. This is the arrangement. What are the features? It's the most common and stable conformation. It is a spiral conformation. And here polypeptide bonds form the backbone. The polypeptide bonds form the backbone, and the side chains of amino acid extends outward. And how this structure is stabilized by hydrogen bond. We can see that hydrogen bond is forming between the NH group and CO groups of the main chain. Between those groups, hydrogen bonds are forming, and in each turn, how many amino acid residues are present? 3.6 amino acid residues are present. Then distance between each amino acid residue. Between each amino acid residue, what is the distance? It is 1.5 angstrom. That much distance is there between each amino acid residue in the polypeptide chain. And usually all these alpha helix are right-handed. Why it is right-handed? Because most of the amino acid present in this alpha helix are all levo type. Levo means we know that all are left hand rotating. And as it is left-handed, the helix also, if it is left-handed, it may cause some overlapping, some steric hindrance may occur. So for avoiding that, it's the most most convenient organization or configuration is the right-handed helix form, and very rarely left-handed also exists there. And if we consider proline and hydroxyproline, it cannot form alpha helix. Why it can't form alpha helix? I will show its structure. Here in its ring, that nitrogen is present. It is not in a free form to form hydrogen bond. So, if proline is found in a polypeptide chain, for forming the hydrogen bond, that helix need to bend due to the steric hindrance because of the that overlapping or that configurational difficulty. The helix need to bend. That is the difficulty to form an alpha helix if the polypeptide contain proline or hydroxyproline amino acid. Next, beta pleated sheet. Beta pleated sheet, we know that this is the picture, beta pleated sheet. The polypeptide chains in beta pleated is almost fully extended, and the distance between the adjacent amino acid, because this one is one amino acid and the another amino acid, and the distance between them, two of them, is 3.5 angstrom. And the beta pleated sheet is stabilized again by hydrogen bond. Hydrogen bond is there, and that hydrogen bond is forming between CO and NH of nearby polypeptide chain, different polypeptide chain, not in the same as in the case of alpha helix. Then these adjacent strands can be either parallel or anti-parallel. Parallel means both strands carboxy terminal end are seen in the same end. Anti-parallel means if one strand's carboxyl terminal end is here, then other strand's amino terminal will be seen here. That is anti-parallel. And the beta pleated sheet, that conformation is usually seen in and the structural motif in proteins like silk fibroin, and in that beta pleated sheet is anti-parallel. And also the beta sheet is more common in flavodoxin and carbonic anhydrase. In flavodoxin, parallel beta pleated sheet are present. In carbonic anhydrase, both parallel and anti-parallel are present. Then as a case study, we need to study about collagen helix. I think this topic you have studied in some other portion taken as part of your seminars. Anyway, I am just mentioning it is collagen helix. What is it? It is a triple helix. Triple. 3 polypeptide chain, red one, blue one and green one. 3 polypeptide chains are held in a helical conformation by winding around each other. And one super helical because one helix itself one turn itself contain 3 turns, right? Because from 3 polypeptide chains. Look here, blue turn, green turn, red turn. And in one super helical turn contains how many amino acid residues? 3.3 amino acid residues are present, and each turn is separated by 2.9 angstrom distance between two turn. It is 2.9 angstrom, and the 3 strands are held together by hydrogen bond. And glycine amino acid is a small size, and it is fit into the interior of the triple helix, and as it is located in the interior of the helix, that region form a shallow groove, and into that groove other polypeptide strands are intertwined and see. And one more thing, a type 4 collagen is there. In that case, that triple helix is discontinuous, and this type 4 collagen is seen in basement membranes. And this basement membrane means they are some sheet-like structures seen in the extracellular matrix for giving support to cells and tissues. Okay. Next, tertiary structure. Tertiary structure means again the secondary level. It is again folding. It's a three-dimensional structure of the whole protein. And there that steric relationship, configurational relationship is happen between distantly, that is important, distantly. In the former case means in the secondary configuration or secondary level of organization, that relationship is occurring between closely located amino acids, that means 3 or 4 amino acids apart. But here that relationship is occurring between distantly placed amino acids in the linear polypeptide chain. But as they come close each other in the 3D aspect, even if they are located far, but they remain very close because of the folding. Then which bonds hold in this form, this much folding, how it is maintained? Through non-covalent interaction itself, like hydrophobic bonds, electrostatic bonds, and van der Waals force. And domains, another term with respect to tertiary structure. It is the functional unit of protein. In the some previous class also we have learned about different domains, motifs. All these comes out of the folded regions of the protein that perform that are important in doing their catalytic function, right? I think you are remembering that. The same thing. The domain means it's the functional unit of a protein. And different domains are present in protein and they are connected with relatively flexible areas of protein. And examples: phenylalanine hydroxylase enzyme. If you take the case of phenylalanine hydroxylase enzyme, it contains 3 domains. One is regulatory, and one is catalytic, and one is protein-protein interaction domain. 3 domains are there, means 3 subunits are there. One is regulatory, one catalytic, and one is helping to make interaction with another protein. That is protein-protein interaction domains. So they are the domains are the functional unit of protein. With that regions, it is making interaction with other proteins or enzymes or doing its function like that. Then quaternary structure. Quaternary structure means it is an assemblage or aggregate of different tertiary structures and form a functional protein. And each unit stands as a subunit. And as these subunits move apart from that aggregate or that group, then that enzyme lose its function. So that's the importance. Then which are the bonds that hold these subunits together? They are hydrogen bonds, electrostatic bonds, hydrophobic bonds, van der Waals force. And if one subunit is there, it's called monomer. 2 is there, it is called a dimer. If 3 is there, it is called trimer. If 4 subunits are there, it is called a tetramer. Example for a tetramer is hemoglobin. It contains 2 alpha chain and 2 beta chains. Next is Ramachandran angles and Ramachandran map. What is Ramachandran angles? Ramachandran angles means they are 2 torsion angles in the polypeptide chain. Okay, torsion means rotation. Ramachandran angles means 2 rotation angles in the polypeptide chain with respect to 2 bonds. Next, we are going to see which are those bonds. That bonds are phi and psi bond. Look at this picture. This is a part of a polypeptide chain. And here we can see the phi and psi bond. And one more bond is there. It is a part of peptide bond. Peptide bond I will show here. This is the peptide bond. C double bond NH. It has a partial double bond character. So it cannot undergo any rotation. So what left here? Only two bonds. This bond and this bond. Bond between alpha carbon and nitrogen and bond between alpha carbon and other carbon. Only these two bonds can rotate. And what are its possible angles of rotation? That are called Ramachandran angles. And these two bonds, the bond between alpha carbon and nitrogen is called phi bond, and bond between alpha carbon and carbon is called psi bond. Okay, and that angle is called dihedral angle. And one more thing, its degree is 180. How it come 180? Look here, this is the alpha carbon, this is alpha carbon, and to its one side there is another carbon, and the to another end there is nitrogen, this one and this one, this is okay. If that polypeptide chain is fully extended, its plane will be 180 degree, right? Bond angle will be 180 degree. That's why we are taking 180 degree here. So consider that this bond angle is 180 and this also 180 degree. And then we are going to explain what is Ramachandran angles. Ramachandran angles means that which all angles are possible for these two bonds to maximally avoid steric interference. I will explain that. We think that the bond angle for this nitrogen and this carbon is 0 degree. That means from 180 it have to rotate like this. So nitrogen will come to this position and carbon also will come to this position. That means carbon is overlapped with the nitrogen. This is called the interference. Carbon is interfering the position of nitrogen, steric interference. So it is not good. It is not possible. So we need to avoid that. So 0 degree angle is not good for these two bonds. Clear? That means some other angles are good or are good for this bond to avoid maximum steric interference. Which all those angles? That is explained through Ramachandran angles. So Ramachandran angles gives all possible angles of rotation between 1 minus 180 degree to plus 180 degree in the polypeptide backbone by avoiding steric interference. Clear? That is Ramachandran angles. Next I am going to explain about Ramachandran plot or map. What is that? Ramachandran plot or map means it is a graphical representation. X-axis and Y-axis will be there. And the x-axis denotes the bond angle of phi bond and y-axis denotes the bond angles of psi bond. And in this graph, we can see some darker region, then much more lighter, and then colorless regions also there. What it indicates? Suppose if a polypeptide chain, if we consider with that so many amino acids are there. Okay, and we are considering one amino acid. For that amino acid, there will be a psi and phi bond. Clear? Okay. Then we need to understand which are the possible best bond angles for those psi and phi bond for that particular amino acid. Okay. For understanding the best bond angles for phi and psi bond, we are plotting the Ramachandran plot. So, the darker region indicates that, means these values indicates that if the bond angle, psi bond angle comes in the range of this value, then it can avoid steric interference in a maximum extent. As it comes down to this range, the steric interference increasing, and as it comes to 0, that means steric interference is maximum, overlapping is maximum. If the bond angle is having or coming in the range of this value, there is maximum steric interference. It's not good. Similarly, the other regions, if the value comes in this range, it is most optimal, good for avoiding, means it can avoid maximum steric interference. White region indicates yeah, all those angles coming in that range are having maximum steric interference. Then we are taking which amino acid is having maximum maximum bond angles. More bond angles is possible for which amino acid? Suppose this is the polypeptide, and we are taking the case of glycine. Taking the case of glycine. Glycine. I will show its structure. Here, this is the structure of glycine. Here there is only one side chain, and there is no restriction for rotation. So that is why it is free to rotate. So it can have many bond angles without having much steric interference. Okay, so while plotting the Ramachandran plot for glycine, it will have more darker regions. That means it is having maximum number of possible bond angles. Right. But we are taking the case of proline. Proline means in that a nitrogen is included in its cycle, in that ring. So it is not freely available for rotation. So it cannot have more bond angles, optimal bond angles without steric interference. Clear? That is Ramachandran plot its purpose. What is the main purpose? It denotes what are the possible bond angles for each amino acids to avoid steric interference. Clear? Color reactions of amino acids. Some tests are there for understanding the presence of amino acids and different properties. They are Ninhydrin reaction. It is done to understand whether the amino acid, given amino acid is alpha or not. Then another is xanthoprotic test. It is done to detect whether the amino acid is aromatic or not. Then Millen's test is another test. It is done for the presence of tyrosine. Biuret test also there, and that test positive inference will not be given by free amino acids and dipeptides. And Sakaguchi test is there. It is done to know the presence of arginine, whether arginine is present or not. Hopkins Cole reaction is there. It is done to confirm the presence of tryptophan. Then lead acetate test is there. It is done to understand the presence of cysteine and cysteine. The methionine will not give this test. Then nitroprusside reaction is there. It is done to understand the presence of sulfhydryl group containing amino acids. And I will show the image of inference of all these tests. Millen's test is the inference, this is the color. Ninhydrin test for alpha amino acids, it will be the inference. Xanthoprotic test, this will be the inference. Biuret test, this is the positive test that is showing the presence, and this is the control, and doesn't have that component. Then Sakaguchi test done to confirm the presence of arginine. This is the inference. Hopkins Cole test. Then lead acetate test for cysteine and cysteine. Then nitroproside test. Red color is the inference to understand the presence of cysteine. Then color reactions of proteins. And there are for that also so many tests are there. Biuret test again. Reagent used is sodium hydroxide and dilute copper sulfate. Color is violet. If violet color is there, it means that it contains polypeptides and proteins. Xanthroprotic test is there using concentrated sulfuric acid. It will give a yellow color, and that means that it contains aromatic amino acid with benzene ring, and it shows that it contains proteins with tryptophan, tyrosine, and phenyl amino acid. Then Millen's test. Millen's test using mercuric nitrate and mercury nitrate. Red color be the inference. It denotes the presence of phenolic compounds. Then sulfur test is there using lead acetate and lead acetate dissolved with the sodium hydroxide. The result shows that the inference is gray or black precipitate, which shows that it contains lead sulfate. How this lead sulfate formed there? Because of the result of decomposition of cysteine that present in that protein by the alkali. Hopkin Call test is there using glyoxylic acid and sulfuric acid. Violet ring will form. It indicates presence of tryptophan, and positive result will given by all the compounds that contain indole ring. Ninhydrin test is there using ninhydrin. Blue color is the inference, and it will be given by compounds containing free amino group. And also positive results are given by ammonia, primary amines, amino acids, peptides, and proteins. Okay, with this we can finish today's section. Thank you.